It's going. You're on.
Okay, this is not candid camera, but I think everybody knows where we've been. Michelle and I had the great invitation from Joseph Richards Shelton Jr. and his lovely wife Susie Shelton to come down and meet them for the first time, because even though my name is Joseph Richard Shelton III, I never had a clue
Who the second was.
who the second was, if there was a second,
Or probably even the first.
or the first. Didn't know anything. So we've been here just enjoying yesterday, last night, today. We got great pictures, but we thought it would be just really amazing to hear some of the stories, because my Uncle Joe here has got such a amazing life history. Joe graduated from West Point in 1944, I believe. And I think he...
June 6, 1944, D-Day
D-Day.
for Europe.
Now a lot of the people that are seeing this don't know what D-Day means.
It was a day that the British and Americans and their allies attacked the Germans who had taken hold of most of Europe.
Yeah, the invasion of Normandy was part of it,
Invasion,
right?
and that was a big part of it.
Yeah. So Joe graduated from West Point that particular day. He then spent some time down in Georgia going to paratrooper training, and then got sent over to Europe and spent, you know, the better part of a year over there. Then came back to the United States, and then went to Japan and went to the Philippines. And he's back in Kentucky now, and now it's 1950.
Yeah.
And the North Koreans are invading South Korea. And President Truman at the time was afraid that if the communist North Koreans took the whole peninsula, it would just change the history of Asia. So Joe and all kinds of other thousands and thousands of other American troops were called to duty and sent to Korea. So I'm going to ask Joe to kind of pick it up from there and tell us some of his experiences when he got over there.
Well, when this all happened, I was in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, with the 11th Airborne Division. And when our forces in Korea were being pushed out of South Korea, and the North Koreans and the Chinese were pushing those people down, or initially it was only the North.
Right.
They pushed the South Koreans out of Seoul, Korea, and almost off the peninsula.
Into the East China Sea.
Yes, and so the Army had to be reinforced, and one of the reinforcements was a regiment from the 11th Airborne Division, which was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And so I was a company commander in the 11th Airborne Division regiment, the 187th Infantry, 187. And so a company commander of about 25 to about 250 men, and but only one of 12 such units. And we were sent out of Campbell to Korea. We landed in Japan and then we went by air over to the airfield in the very bottom of the boot of Korea, South Korea. And that regiment then joined other forces, and we made a push and pushed the North Koreans out of South Korea, pushed them out all the way up to the border of China, and we defeated the army, the North Korean army, and we thought everything was over.
They were running.
Oh, they were taking off their uniforms, or throwing their weapons away, and just leaving the field. And so we were celebrating a great victory. But little did we know, in the part of Korea we were, that the Chinese decided they're going to come into the war.
Because they're communists also.
That's right, and they came down and they hit one of our divisions, they hit another division. And we heard about this, so we had to help those divisions, but they started hitting us. So they pushed us, there's so many Chinese forces, that they pushed us all the way down to Seoul, across the Yalu River. And we set up our forces on the banks on the south side. And they couldn't get across the river because it was wide, flows fast, and we had blown all the bridges, so they couldn't get across. And they gave us a little break. During that break, or just before that break, the commanding general of the forces that was leading us down south had an accident in his Jeep, and he was either killed or injured, and he brought in a new general, General Ridgway, a general that I had got to know when I was in World War II, as aide to General James Gavin, who had 82nd Airborne, and I was his aide during the last year and a half of the war in Germany previously. So a new general came in, General Ridgway, and all the talk was talking about, okay, we're going to continue going south. Ridgway came in and said, we're not going south. We're going to start the attack again. And so we there's only one regiment of paratroopers. They pulled us out, took us down to an airfield. We got our parachutes, had all our equipment, and and when the attack came off, we were flown over the Chinese who were pushing against the
Allied
forces who were south of them. We jumped behind the main body of Chinese, and we cut off their support from the rear.
Supply lines. Huh?
Yeah. Well, we were back probably 25 or 30 miles. Then we landed there and stopped the Chinese from being reinforced. And the Ridgway and his forces pushed the Chinese back through us, and they came to a halt, and that's where the new border of North and South Korea was drawn.
The 41st,
38th parallel.
Okay, 38th parallel.
And after that, the war ended. And the general came down and he said, Joe, because I'd met him in World War II, he said, Joe, it's time for you to go home. I'm sending you back to the States. You and Sergeant, I forget what his name was. And so we got on said goodbye to the troops, got a plane to Tokyo, and then we got on another plane that took us home to the United States and back to Dear old USA.
Hallelujah. Thank you, Joe, for the story.
Bravo. Oh, that was so good.
Goodbye.